Last on Everdark, Julian and Damon made love in the ocean. Damon showed Julian the cycle of life in the deep and how it was not so different on the land. But just as they were about to go back to Ravenscroft Manor, Damon realized they had a visitor, Caemorn Losus. Now we turn back to Christian and Balthazar. Everdark, Episode 65, Soul in Stone. The diamond sparkled in Christian's hand. It was so beautiful. It felt warm and slick against his fingers, and it held a soul, David's soul.
How is that even possible? A soul in a stone? Impossible. Yet it's true.
It was almost too much to contemplate. Christian had always turned to facts, to science, to provable things. He and Julian had looked all over the world for the unexplainable. Julian had done it to find proof that supernatural beings were real. Christian had done it in order to show that everything had a natural explanation.
But then vampires turned out to be real, and now I'm a speaker to the dead, and David is in my hand.
The diamond flashed at him. He looked closer and thought he saw something moving within it. He jerked back and swallowed. David's soul was in there, something he had scoffed at before. No souls, no heaven, no hell, no going on. Christian had honestly thought that there was nothing, and how ironic was that, considering the gift he had.
Is there a hell?
Christian asked Lisette. And where had that come from? But it was a logical question to ask of someone who could control souls and stick them in gems for seeming amusement. Balthazar stiffened beside him, and Christian felt more than saw Balthazar turn his head to look at him. My fledgling. Balthazar's mind caressed him with the question.
I wondered.
Lisette did not act surprised that he would ask her such a question. Christian licked his lips as he glanced down at the glowing diamond in his hand. David's soul was in there. David's soul.
You wonder why he lingers instead of moving on through the veil.
She guessed at the meaning of her question. He gave a brief nod. Was David afraid of the judgment that awaited him? If there was judgment. He studied Lisette's face and the Kalys beside her. What did they know? How much did they see? Were they so distant from even vampires because of what they knew?
He did something terrible. Something so terrible he might fear hell?
Lisette asked. Christian rubbed his hands together, the diamond between them.
Some would say so. But would he?
He did, and he's still running from it, Balthazar said without question. Balthazar reached over and took Christian's hands in his. The diamond flashed between their fingers. He wondered if David objected to being so close to the man that Christian was opening his heart to. He wondered if David felt Balthazar touching him, or more like touching Christian.
Well, you could ask him, or give him the punishment that Balthazar believes he deserves.
Lisette smiled, and she didn't look like a child at all. He should fear damnation for what he's done, Balthazar murmured. He was glaring at the diamond.
Or perhaps Christian fears it for him. Strange that your fledgling is such a forgiving sort.
Lisette settled back down on the sofa opposite them again, drinking the honey-spiced wine.
I'm sure it's nothing you could understand, Lisette. I doubt there has ever been someone who wronged you that you did not destroy.
Sophia said.
True.
She leaned forward and stared at Christian.
Do you want to destroy David? I can teach you how to do that too.
Balthazar's hands tightened over his, and then he was meeting Christian's gaze. You are not responsible for David, Christian, but we should discuss what to do about him later, when our guests have gone. Not in front of her. You don't want her to know your secrets, especially about David, Balthazar warned. This is the hook.
The hook for what?
For whatever she hopes to get out of you.
But knowing is all a part of how I can help him, Balthazar. I need to understand. Just like I need to understand about Kaly.
Lisette crossed her legs at the ankles. She was more like a doll than ever before. Balthazar's eyes narrowed as he looked at her. No, you do not. You need to know nothing about this.
As you wish.
She shrugged.
Then I am limited in what I can do, and Christian will, well...
Well, what?
Christian asked.
Speakers don't last. Maybe it's what they see, but mostly it's because they aren't trained properly.
She said with a shrug.
If you don't want Christian to last, then...
You don't know that's true. It's all a rumor. Innuendo, myths, lies, Balthazar growled. We all thought speakers were just stories, like Damon was a story. But it's real, and that means that none of us are experts. Christian stared at Balthazar. He knew why Balthazar did not want him to reveal any of himself to her. It made complete sense. They should be circumspect. He certainly wasn't one to share himself with strangers, let alone dangerous strangers. Yet he wanted to tell her. He wanted to understand how she could have no fear of the dead. There's a price, Christian. Remember that. She is not here out of compassion. She wants something. Balthazar's voice reached him. And I doubt she has anything to give you in return that's worth the price.
But to answer your earlier question, Christian, about heaven and hell...
Lisette turned to him, ignoring Balthazar.
The Kaly do not know the answer to that question. We take control of the souls of the newly dead before they've had a chance to cross the veil, so the Kaly do not know what is beyond there.
Her hands curled around the wineglass.
But you, as speaker to the dead, can call any spirit to you from beyond the veil. You would be able to get the answer to your question.
Christian blinked. He could call spirits back from beyond the veil. What might they know? Not just about life here on Earth, but beyond.
Now you are starting to understand why being a speaker to the dead makes you so rare and valuable.
Lisette nodded as she took in the understanding that must have crossed over Christian's face.
I can call anyone?
He qualified.
Well, some are said to be beyond reach. It is said that some are reborn, but we know nothing for certain, as the last speaker died in the war. So Balthazar isn't wrong when he said that we know little, but we know some things.
She answered.
For example, there are said to be books in Nightfallen written by previous speakers about what they discovered from their conversations with souls. But those books are more for non-speakers. You, after all, will be able to learn whatever you want on your own.
Christian felt something in her mind then. A hunger, really, for knowledge. But it wasn't general knowledge like what he had asked her, but specific. He thought she might want to speak to someone who went beyond.
How can you teach me to control my gift if the last speaker died so long ago and all their knowledge is missing?
Christian pointed out.
The knowledge of how to train a speaker is kept with the Kaly bloodline, while the information on what the speakers have seen was kept in the Iros bloodline.
She answered simply. It sounded like the truth, but her mind was almost slippery. He wasn't good enough to truly read her thoughts. Christian cut a glance at Balthazar. His master was staring at her without blinking. He likely knew what she was thinking. He couldn't tell from Balthazar's expression what it was or what he felt about it. Lisette leaned forward, elbows on knees as she asked,
Wouldn't you like to know what lies beyond? Is there a god or gods? Is there meaning and purpose to life? Do souls continue? Are they actually reborn? You could know these things, Christian. You could truly know everything.
Christian stared down into the diamond. Those questions she asked were amazing to contemplate. He would want to know those answers, but weirdly, he wanted to have answers from David first. Sophia stirred from her place on the arm of the sofa, and Christian looked over at her. Her silver eyes were full of sadness and a warning that she made audible when she said,
Lisette, you should tell him about the costs of knowledge. Or would you just encourage him to take the risks so that you could reap the rewards?
Sophia's silver eyes had turned to the other childlike vampire, and there was an utter coldness in them.
But you might find that the answers you seek will leave you even emptier than you are now.
Lisette's shoulders jerked. It was clearly an unconscious movement, one that she wished she had not made. Christian could feel that from her now, yet her mind was smooth like a mirror. It reflected back at Christian, and only for brief seconds could he sense anything of what she was feeling. And it was that hunger again. It was so strong that she could not altogether reel it back into herself.
What do you want to know about what's beyond the veil, Lisette?
He asked. And for a moment, Christian could see Lisette commanding one of the souls she controlled to go through a billowing blue-white veil that glowed with stolen starlight and return with another spirit. But the moment that the soul touched the veil, she lost control of it. She screamed her frustration, sent bones and spellbooks flying off of the tables as she raged, beat her hands bloody as she pounded her fists against the top of stone coffins. But then the smooth, mirror-like image was back.
You want to reach someone on the other side of the veil?
Christian stated and did not ask.
I do. Would you help me reach them?
Lisette asked. No, absolutely not. Balthazar suddenly was standing between him and Lisette. Christian did not ask you to trap David's spirit. He owes you nothing.
I'm only asking for a favor. I am not asking for payment. As you said, I did not make any conditions when I trapped David, did I?
Her faux innocence was marred by her smile.
You call it a favour because you know about Christian's good heart.
Arceus rumbled.
You know by helping him he will want to help you.
Is that such a bad thing? Is that not what friends do for one another? David was causing him distress. I stopped that distress. He sees I have a need. He wants to help satisfy that need.
Lisette looked between the two vampires.
He does not have to.
She focused on him.
I am not asking anything of you, Christian.
Of course you are, Balthazar snapped.
If Christian wishes to help me in return out of his own free will, then that is his business, isn't it? Or are you more like Rowan and believe you have a right to determine what your fledglings do and do not do?
Lisette asked.
How dare you?
Arceus growled. He pushed off of the mantelpiece and practically quivered with indignation.
To compare Balthazar to Rowan is the utmost insult.
Balthazar's eyes were narrowed. It seems that you really don't know what friendship is, Lisette, if you would say these things to me. Christian saw that this potential alliance with the Kaly was going in the wrong direction. He glanced over at Sophia. She was looking at him with those wide, sad, doll-like eyes. He had to save things.
Stop! Both of you, stop!
He found himself saying.
It's my decision if I help her or not, Balthazar.
Today, I want to tell you about a completed werewolf romance story called Crimson. This was supposed to be a gay retelling of Little Red Riding Hood with werewolves. It didn't turn out that way, but it is a sweet and sexy tale of romance and found family. Here's the blurb. Gareth, alpha werewolf of the Cold Moon Pack, does not believe in mates. His friend went mad after his mate was killed, so Gareth resists love. But then he meets Jude Connor. Growing up an orphan, Jude experienced human cruelty and trusts no one. Still, he dreams of belonging to someone and being part of a family. Can he bring himself to trust Gareth and the Cold Moon Pack and make that dream a reality? Since the story is shorter at 47 chapters and not part of a larger story world, Crimson is a great place for new members to get started. If you do join us, I really hope you read this story and tell me what you think.
You are just a fledgling. You don't know what you are saying. Balthazar was in full master protective mode now.
Of course I know. And you do too. You want to protect me. You would do anything to protect me.
Christian said. Balthazar's mouth opened and shut. Christian.
I know. Sit. Sit down.
Christian grasped Balthazar's hand and drew him back down on the couch. Balthazar was shaking with suppressed rage and fear. Christian stroked his arms.
It's okay. It's okay. Everything is okay.
Christian soothed. She has no right to ask anything of you. I won't allow you to be hurt again. Do you understand, Christian? Balthazar held his hands, and the diamond felt like it was cutting into Christian's palm. He opened their hands so that they could both see the diamond. He won't be allowed to hurt you any longer. I don't want you going down that path.
But this isn't a choice. This is my path, Balthazar. I'm a speaker to the dead, right?
Their gazes met, and their minds locked. Christian rested their foreheads together. Balthazar's breathing evened out, and he cupped Christian's face before kissing him gently. I don't like her. I don't trust her. This is a bad plan you have, Balthazar said.
But I don't know what my plan exactly is. I want to hear what she has to say, but I think she's the right choice.
Christian said. How do you know that? We need to talk to Damon and—
I don't know how, but it feels right. We'll ask Damon too, but this feels meant.
You're getting to be like Sophia, Balthazar stated, raising an eyebrow. Christian grinned.
Yeah, well, Sophia's been giving me the eye all night. She knows Lisette is here to stay. For a while, anyways.
I won't have this, Christian. But both of them turned towards Sophia, who was smiling at them.
You're so sweet together,
Sophia said.
aren't they, Lisette? Oh, they are something. I'd forgotten. New fledgling, new master. Sensitive. I apologize.
Lisette said with a tight expression. Christian met her gaze.
You push. You don't know any other way to be.
Lisette went still for a moment, as if realizing she had somehow shown him far more of herself than she'd planned. Sophia made a soft humming under her breath. He thought it might be amusement. He wasn't sure. Arceus had settled back against the mantelpiece, but he was still watchful. Balthazar, though he was calmer, was still rigid. His eyes were locked on Christian's. Christian stroked his arms again. Balthazar shook his head, but then sighed. He knew that Christian would do what he would do.
Do you want to learn how to use your gift or not?
Lisette asked.
Can you really teach me?
Christian challenged. But Balthazar was shaking his head. You've got David and this damn diamond, Christian. Let this be the end of it. You don't have to worry about the dead anymore. He is the only one that's bothering you, and now he's taken care of. You need to do nothing else.
You know it doesn't work that way, Balthazar.
Sophia said softly.
Our powers are as much a curse as a blessing. They never go away. They never leave us. They are us.
For you, perhaps. But I can keep Christian safe from this. Balthazar's hold tightened on him. Arceus's forehead furrowed.
We do not keep vampires safe by not having them learn to control their gifts, Balthazar.
Read her mind, Arceus. Balthazar pointed at Lisette's chest. I don't need to see the future to know that this is a really bad idea. I'm not letting Christian step into that darkness and—
She can teach me.
Christian said as he covered one of Balthazar's hands with his own and squeezed it.
I need to learn how to control this.
You don't need to learn to control it. I can control it for you. You can be safe now that David is—
I don't think so.
Christian said.
I love that you want to protect me, but I can't let you do that. It's like my parents who wanted to stop me from ever dating anyone again for fear they'd be like David. In their attempts to protect me, things didn't go so well. I don't want to be afraid of this gift. I want to understand it. I want to master it.
He looked at the diamond again.
The fact that there was a way to trap him is fascinating, but I can't keep him in here forever.
Oh, you can.
Lisette told him with a grin.
He's stuck in there forever if you want it. You can take him out and do whatever you like and put him back again. I'll show you how. He's the one that's chosen to remain here after all. What happens to him is, well, exactly what he deserves. Isn't it, Christian?
You sense something about him?
Christian asked her, curious.
I don't have to sense anything. All I had to do was look at his face. That wretched look of desire, guilt and shame and lust. It was all there. Souls like this, that remain in order to hold on to another person, tells me there's something not quite right about them. You see, true love lets go. Even common love lets go. But obsession and insanity, they remain. And he's got all of that inside of him. I'm curious about your story, if you'd ever tell me.
Again, you show no reason you need to know the story to teach him how to let David in and out of the diamond, Balthazar growled, and his eyes glowed like fire. There will be no psychological games, Lisette. Not with my fledgling, not with my people.
No, psychological games are your forte, Balthazar.
She smiled, but there was no amusement there. Christian leaned forward, the diamond between his fingers.
So, how do I let him out? And how do I put him back?
A drop of your blood on the diamond will release him. Binding him back in the stone will require that, plus your intention he be bound.
She said.
Sounds easy enough.
It can be,
She said.
but you best try it for the first time while I am here.
Christian let his fangs extend. He brought his thumb up to the right one, intent on puncturing his skin and putting a drop of blood onto the shiny surface of the diamond. Balthazar grasped his wrist. Don't, Christian. He's in there. He doesn't need to be let out, Balthazar said.
If it was Ronan here, what would you do?
Christian asked. If I had Ronan there, Balthazar let out a sharp laugh. I would kill him again. But you cannot kill a spirit. I do not know how to torture spirits.
Oh, I do, and I can show Christian.
Lisette said brightly. Christian shot her a look.
I don't want to torture him. I just want to talk to him. To understand and make him understand.
As you wish.
She said.
But I wouldn't expect much the first few times you release him. Spirits who linger are devious.
Nothing compared to Eiros bloodline vampires, Balthazar said tightly. Perhaps you should let me deal with him in terms of the questioning, Christian.
Maybe I will.
Christian smiled at him. He didn't know if he'd actually be able to speak to David. Though, not now. Just let him out and stuff him back in again, Balthazar suggested again, not wanting to show anyone his secrets.
Right, of course. Will Balthazar be able to see David now?
Christian asked Lisette.
Yes, now that he's been trapped.
She answered. He suddenly felt Sophia's hand on his arm.
Sometimes the future is in the past.
He nodded jerkily. He felt conspicuous. Everyone was watching him. The Kaly reminded him of snowbirds on a line. Though he had no reason to believe that this was against Arceus's religion, he definitely felt like this was sacrilegious.
David is right here, trapped, like he trapped me.
He met Balthazar's eyes. He let out a breath. He bit into his thumb, feeling the prick, and then he tasted the copper on his tongue. When he drew his thumb back, there was a bright red bead of crimson. He turned his thumb to the side so that the pooling blood dripped off and landed on the center of the diamond. He expected it to sit there or something, but it didn't. His blood disappeared in a flash of light, and suddenly David was there, 2 feet away. He was staring with such intentness at Christian that Christian actually pulled back against the couch. His breathing filled his ears so he couldn't hear anything else. He recognized the outfit David was wearing, the faded jeans and untucked button-down shirt with the mixture of red checks. The sleeves were rolled up to David's elbows, showing off his muscular forearms with the dusting of dark hair. Christian's gaze followed them down to his hands. For an academic, David's hands had a well-used look to them. He often woodworked in his garage. His fingers showed the nicks, cuts, and roughness. It had been erotic to have those hands on his untouched skin. You thought his hands made him more adult, different from you. Balthazar's voice was suddenly in his head, holding him lightly, keeping him safe.
I did. They were in adult's hands.
Balthazar's hands were suddenly covering both of his. His hands were so different from David's. Not less mature, just different, better. Christian laced their fingers together as he stared up at David. He wanted David to see.
I've moved on past you. You need to move on past me.
But David stepped closer, and Christian's breath began to frost the air.
Interesting,
Lisette said.
He's actually trying to take energy from you in order to more physically appear.
The cold. That's what the cold is all about, Balthazar asked.
Yes, you best teach him not to do that, Christian. You're new as a vampire and need your strength,
Lisette said. How does he make it stop? Balthazar frowned at the spirit who lingered just a foot away from them now. Christian was glad that Balthazar had asked. His tongue clove to the roof of his mouth. He couldn't look away from David's pleading eyes. Was that what he had looked like that last day as he drove frantically around, looking for Christian and couldn't find him? Whoa, Christian, let's not. I guess we are standing, Balthazar said as he stood beside Christian.
I can look you in the eyes now. I'm as tall as you, David.
Christian found himself saying. Cold caressed his skin as David tried to touch him.
You should not let him do that either.
Lisette protested, but softly, as if she already knew that he wasn't listening to her and would do what he wanted. How does he stop David exactly? Balthazar demanded.
Why are you still here, David?
Christian demanded. David opened his mouth, but there were no words that he could hear.
Why can't you leave me alone?
Christian's free hand that was clutching Balthazar's clenched into a fist. David tried to touch him again. Christian lurched backwards.
Why do you still think you have any right to be near me?
His voice rose. It never rose, but he was shouting. David tried to cup his face. And this time, instead of pulling away, Christian actually pushed David away with one hand flat against his chest. There was an electric zing the moment he touched David's body, and the ghost flew backwards. There was a shocked hiss from the Kalys. Lisette's eyes were wide, and her mouth went from an O to a grin.
You can touch them. Actually touch them.
She breathed.
Amazing. Oh, I cannot wait to see what other things you can do.
Demonstration is over, Balthazar growled. Lisette, how does he put the genie back in the bottle? Christian was staring down at his hands. He could still feel David on his palms. He looked up. David was starting to back away. He was going to hide so he wouldn't be imprisoned. There was still that pleading look on David's face.
But no explanation, no apologies, just this insane need to be near me no matter what. Oh, David, I have tried not to hate you, but you are giving me very little choice.
Lisette, he's getting away. Balthazar's voice was tight. David was retreating to the corner of the room. He had started to disappear from view.
Yes, now, Christian, you need to take more blood and intend.
Too late. He's going.
Christian said as he tried to cut his thumb again. The old wound had healed completely.
Not too late. There are rules to this.
Lisette waved one hand over her head in a circle, and David was pulled back into full color and substantiation.
He will be kept here as long as it takes for you to learn to bind him, Christian.
Her silvery eyes met his.
But I'm betting you're going to be a quick learner.
Join us next time for episode 66, Porn.
If you don't think of yourself as that much of a reader, I understand. I don't think of myself as a typical author either. I'm a storyteller, and my only goal is to entertain you with exciting tales of romance and adventure, just like Everdark. I write what I like to read, and that's why you get hot heroes and badass villains, magical powers, fantasy worlds, and, of course, cliffhangers. It's a lot of fun for everyone, and I hope you decide to join in.
The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing.